I asked Carl to talk about something, and
first you joke about it, and then it's actually the case.
You know, you can do just like the rest of Dharma teachers do. You always have emptiness, you have compassion, samsara, dharma. Huh?
Bodhicitta.
Yeah. There you go.
I was going to suggest it earlier when you asked. I guess we're waiting for Gwen. I don't really have any, except for those topics. I don't really have anything, but I said that I could answer questions if there are, or if there are any topics that people are interested in. I could respond to that. Otherwise, I'm just going to say the words emptiness, bodhicitta, compassion, over and over again.
Lama Carl, may I ask you about the Tagal session we had previously? Is the Tagal experience somehow connected with aliveness or Sambhogakaya?
Yeah.
Is it understandable?
Yeah, that is like the Tagal, it means leap over. So it's leaping over from Dharmakaya to Sambhogakaya aspect. And in the experience of that is that aliveness, the richness of the natural state. So very, in my experience, last session was very heart-based, very alive, like just radiating. That is that luminosity, just the radiance of love, of aliveness. So certainly connected to Sambhogakaya and the aliveness aspect. Sambhogakaya means enjoyment body, and the way I read that is that it's very it's very enjoyable, that energetic aspect of it. Not just empty, but completely filled, saturated with aliveness. I find it really like I'm really enjoying that Tagal aspect because it's so embodied that it just completely fulfills any needs, it's just pure contentment in a very concrete, very embodied way.
Yeah, Carl, you just on that. I'm just wondering about like the pattern in retreats to getting to that place. Like that last session, like you said, I felt it, very stable, very alive, very clear, very embodied, very nice. But it seems like, there's this process to get there. Like I have to be broken down and come through this sort of thorns, like tiredness, and before I can get to this, very nice natural state with stability, aliveness, knowingness. So can you talk about that? sort of process with retreats at all?
What do you mean by the process?
Well, why is it like that? Like for you, or does that make sense to you? Do you like?
Yeah.
Well, why is that? Like, it seems to be a similar pattern each time, each retreat. So what's your perspective? Why? You know? Sorry.
Well, retreats are made for that. Like that's one of the main purposes of retreats, because I think it's pretty universal that some psychic beings just cannot access that level of clarity and sustain it like on a daily basis in everyday life. So that's why we have retreats in the first place, because we need to, it takes some time to cut through enough of the obstacles that we experience on a regular basis in order to actually see it that clearly. But there's a process of deepening, like it's not this exact, the process is the same in my experience, but it goes deeper every time. Is that like the process is the same in that it takes approximately the same amount of days. Like you can pretty much tell that it's the first day is probably going to be like this, and like with the tiredness, and then maybe in the beginning of first day there might come up some stuff, and then it settles more and more. So in that sense, it's like it follows the same pattern, but it becomes deeper, of course, because you're not working with exactly the same stuff or the same amount of stuff that, like, as you progress, I mean. But I'm not really sure if I understood the question or if there was a question.
There was no question.
Because I guess there are several factors that make it that way, that like we're able to deconstruct enough on retreats to have such clear experiences. Like different factors, like it was mentioned, I don't remember if it was yesterday or the day before that, but about the removal of the phones and all the stuff that normally can be distracting. So that's one factor. There's the amount of sitting that is increased. Interestingly enough, on this retreat, like we're sitting far less, but in my experience, it's a very, very powerful like retreat compared to others, or many of the others. So it's not all about the amount of sitting either. It's also about who gives the instructions, and also that there's a group. And we're a pretty big group practicing together, so that might have something to do with it. But different factors, because that's what retreats are for, to have those clearer experiences that was also mentioned that equals mountains of merit.
Yeah, the energies are definitely very strong, and it has to be that group effect, concentration, just concentrated, because it feels like I can't get anywhere near this kind of strength of sessions in my own personal practice. It's impossible.
Yeah, at the present moment.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, it gives me encouragement.
Yeah.
Because it's a glimpse of what's possible in my own practice as well, in terms of progress. So it's just an extra sort of, motivation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. That's why retreats are. I wouldn't even say important, but crucial.
Hmm.
It's like going to all retreats possible. It's the best way.
Yeah, thanks. That's it.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. About Togal, is it like if you feel you get it, should you use that mostly in your practice, or is that kind of like separate practice, or is it just like adding to the Hatha Yoga? Like, does it matter that you kind of stabilize or have some stable Hatha Yoga first, or can you just do Togyal, you think?
No, there's like a usually recommended for good reason to start with emptiness aspect of the, because Togal is not, it's not a separate Hatha Yoga, it's just focusing on a different aspect, luminosity rather than emptiness. But what has happened, like what I've experienced with Togal when it hasn't been as stable in my, like when my mind hasn't been that stable, and then focusing on the luminosity aspect, what can happen is that high that we were, like that was mentioned earlier, that unstable, giggly kind of thing, which is not exactly the same. So to get it right, emptiness aspect should be clear before leaping over from emptiness to
Okay.
otherwise it's not certain that it's correct, because it's not like it's not a, oh, what's the right word, it's not like a euphoric state, but it can easily become that if we don't see the emptiness of that love and aliveness. But it's not actually something like it's we always use the three qualities: emptiness, cognizance, aliveness, and stability. So in that sense, there's nothing new here. It's just a practice that heavily reveals aliveness, love.
Okay, thank you.
Can you tell a little bit about why it doesn't come quite as naturally as Dharmakaya? I mean, the Mahamudra tradition has no Togal, and most Mahamudra Mahasiddhas, I think, didn't achieve rainbow body, but they achieved first stage Buddhahood. So also in my experience, it's if you just do Trek Jut and non-meditation and really get that, it doesn't come as naturally as the Togal aspect. It seems like also in the tradition, it's something you focus on. It's like you do this Tiglay visions, the 4 visions. It's something, an additional aspect you kind of add to the practice of non-meditation to kind of enrich it, to kind of pronounce a different aspect of it, I guess. But do you know why it doesn't come as naturally as the Dharmakaya aspect and the emptiness aspect?
Well, I'm not sure that if it doesn't come as naturally, but it seems like I don't know much about the Mahamudra traditional way of practicing at all. But it just seems like maybe if it is the case, then they're not focusing on that aspect. And then, of course, it won't come as be revealed. If they're focusing, because emptiness realization doesn't just come naturally to most people without actually focused practice, focused insight practice. So maybe it's something like that, that the focus is not on that aspect, and therefore one won't progress in that direction. Yeah, and I also don't know much about. I haven't pieced it together in my own practice with the whole thing with visions and stuff like that. It's still something that has yet to click. So I'm not like I can't speak much about that. I don't understand it well enough.
Thank you.
I can add something to that vision
Okay.
thing. So, well, something I never learned Tagal in a Tibetan tradition, not in this life anyway. And so they speak of 4 different kinds of visions as a progression, right? And I do not know what those 4 visions means, because they are kept secret and are transmitted in tradition, inside tradition, and I'm not part of any tradition. But if we speak of these visual visions related to those Dzogchen channels that I was talking about yesterday, and increasingly the transparent part of the channels and then the colored part of the channels. What I didn't say yesterday was that when I had that guitar chord on my hand, and I was saying that it has the outer part and then the inner part, right? So what I said that the outer part is stained, or kind of the karmas are kind of printed on the outer surfaces. And if you have subtle enough perception, you can actually see those karmic imprints on nadis, and you can see them, you can feel them, and you can see that they have how should I say, well, look at my shirt. It has certain kinds of designed patterns, red flowers. And this is like a harmonious, peaceful, pure pattern. But karmic patterns are like a smudge. It's sort of like if I put just the red paint, and if it was like a liquid paint on the fabric and then just did this, it would become like a chaotic color. So that's exactly how it is with, if you can perceive how the karmic grooves are on nadis. It's like a messy colors. And so what happens with insight practice and with what Sambhogakaya means is that when that selfing is released, then selfing is released, and then light aspect of awareness is meditated, connected with. These colors manifest as pure and clear colors. No more that chaotic dirt. So at that point, that nadi that I was talking about, it's like it doesn't only have the pure core, but also the outside layers, those different sheets, they, because of the flow of prana, because of the flow of energy, they literally radiate this non-physical subtle light that have rainbow colors, that has rainbow colors. So it's not that the whole nadi becomes transparent. It's this Sambhogakaya aspect of our mind that is, usually our energy body is in samsaric condition, but in nirvanic condition with Tögal practice, it is just returned to its natural condition when our subtle body radiates all these pure colors or pure lights as they are discussed in traditional texts. And then what happens with the visions is that, visions as they are discussed in Dzogchen, what it means is that you just see your own being, see your own mind in an increasing fashion. Usually, we also have people in our Sangha, I've seen them myself, the visions start from simple visual things like tigles, which is like a circle that has like a ball or a circle, an orb that radiates rainbow colors, that has rainbow colors. And what we are seeing there is something called, it's in Ayurveda, which is the traditional Indian healing system of healing. It's called ojas, O-J-A-S, ojas. That's, in Tibetan, they talk about tigle. In Sanskrit, it's bindu, meaning point, or ojas. So you're actually seeing that pure vitality as a visual representation. That's what happens when you see a tigle. Then there are different kinds of visions. That's the most simple one. But we have, I also have these tankas behind me. So that's like the basic building block, a tigle, a bindu. But it's sort of like, like when we had analog televisions. When you went close enough to the television, you could see these separate pixels. Do you remember that? There were these pixels that had like a yellow, green, and red light, these very small pixels, right? So, but the whole picture on the television screen consists of thousands of small pixels or tigles. So in the same way with Tögal visions, the tigle is like a small building block that are then can be used to or are used to grow something bigger. And what I mean by this is that, with visions, we come to actually see Buddhas, deities. And like I said, we are seeing our own mind, our own energy. So it's just a visual representation of our own being. This is why we have all the deities and tantric art in the first place, because people had visions. And furthermore, that's when, sometimes you have these big paintings of mandalas, where there is a certain kind of geometrical design, and there can be many, many deities in and around that geometrical mandala. That comes from visions. So that's my understanding of it. It's just seeing what you are. You're seeing all those deities that, from the beginning, it might be that when we practice Tara, for example, or Dorje Drelo, or whichever deity, we might kind of think that we are practicing something else, cultivating something else than ourselves. But Tara, Dorje Drelo, all these are us, really. Our energy, aspects of our awareness. Well, it kind of isn't easy. If you look at Dorje Drelo, for example, he has 3 eyes, he has fangs, and he's standing on with a bare cock. He's standing on a tigress on a heath. So I don't think any one of us has done that or ever looked like that. But nevertheless, that's, Dorje Drelo is in samsaric mind we have anger. And anger is a very dynamic condition. When you're angry, you're fuming and furious, but that's a samsaric condition. Dorje Drelo is that energy, like anger liberated or transformed into pure dynamic energy. And as a visual representation, that's how he looks. That's how that emotion looks. Same thing with all deities. With Vajrayogini, which is the counterpart of Dorje Drelo, it's passion, like desire, passion. And Vajrayogini is really good for, I briefly mentioned like pleasures and sex. As you know, in our teachings, we have this simple technique for transforming desire, whether sex desire or other kinds of perhaps addictions. There is a small Chandali-like technique for that. But nevertheless, anyway, Vajrayogini is for transforming desires. That's what, as a tantric vision, that's how transformed desire as a personified being looks like. Tantric archetype. Go ahead, Karin.
Yeah, I actually wanted to follow up on that. But what you're saying is that there's no, like, Tagal visions aren't something different from just feeling, the tantric vibration. It's just a visual representation. It's just a visual aspect of seeing. Yeah, okay. Yeah, because that does seem to come naturally to some people and less natural to others. So it depends on the.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Tagal visions aren't necessarily. I actually heard Garchen Rinpoche say this also, that Tagal visions are not necessarily visual. It can be through any sense. And that's like I said, I haven't studied Tagal in Tibetan lineage, but I have never seen this mentioned in Dzogchen Tagal related discussions or texts that they would say that it can be through other senses as well. But it can, in my experience, and I also heard Garchen Rinpoche say that.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that opens up like much more if it's not just because then like just the Tagal experience is then a Tagal vision, basically, if you just connect completely with that light.
Yes, exactly. So like Dzogchen Lingpa's instruction that I shared with you earlier today, where you, in a way, drink the light with your heart through your eyes. You kind of drink it. And from there, it spreads to all nadis automatically. But the way how I usually practice it, myself being a very physical person, rather than a visual one, I usually practice it from the beginning with all the nadis, through the body. But same thing.
I'm going to have a go at formulating a question. It sort of follows on from what I was saying yesterday, trying to say yesterday. It's sort of somewhere around the feeling like, are you supposed to recognize the secret, the Dharmakaya in the subtle body? I mean, this is sort of it seems to me that practice is recognizing Buddha nature within the subtle body, and then recognizing it within the physical body as well. Is that true? We sort of recognize that we're recognizing Buddha nature within the subtle body and also the physical body as well.
Yeah, both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a different way to view it is just to investigate the nature of like the nature of phenomena, and both body and mind is a phenomena.
Yeah.
So it's just the nature of this, whatever it is the nature of mind.
Yeah, and I see we're nadis, and we seem to be talking a lot about the subtle body and the energy body, and how we recognize sort of Buddha nature within that, the purity of that, and how central channel of the nadi is pure, and then that sort of becomes a whole nadi when when the karma is purified. And I'm wondering how that relates to the physical body, and we don't seem to talk an awful lot about the sort of the physical body, and whether that's sort of taken care of with practice anyway, just through the purification of the nadis, and the physical body is also sort of purified, or yeah. So
my experience is that yes, like, but also even if it's not spoken that much about, it's included, like the physical body. We start every time with the physical body in the recognizing the space of the body. So it's always there from the beginning, and it's also my experience is that it's that you kind of like you start with the body and the karma that is related to the inside the body, first to sixth bhumis, and then naturally it becomes easier and easier to feel into the subtle body because of this clearing out process. Process. So like it's not my experience that the physical body is not that focused on. But with these practices that we do, with the deity practices and the guru yoga, it affects both at the same time.
And also something that I can add to that is that you probably have all noticed that if you compare, let's say somebody who's 50 years old, somebody who is a practitioner and has been for, let's say, 10, 20 years, has done some kind of yogic practice or meditative practice. And then we have a 50-year-old person, let's say twin sister or twin brother, who hasn't practiced. The skin looks very different. Face looks very different. In terms of, the skin becomes smooth, less wrinkles for a practitioner, forehead, less wrinkles. You all know what I'm talking about, don't you? Practitioners seem to be a lot more healthy in that sense. And what also happens with, we think of nadis and centers, these subtle body, organs of the subtle body with techniques, but, when we practice nadi technique, we are deeply inhaling and exhaling. Same thing with Chandali practices, Vajra breath, Vajra body, all these techniques. You're not only working with prana, but also with the physical air. And this, of course, has a purifying effect on the physical organs and purifies blood as well. So, there was quite a long period when I didn't practice much breathing techniques. And then when I took it up again, I noticed that when I inhaled and held my breath, and then when I exhaled, I noticed that my exhaled air, it smelled and tasted like fumes. That there was like a toxic, toxicity being released with exhalations. Where does this toxicity come from? Through air, through different kinds of, is it additives in food? Additives? Is it like chemicals? Through air, through food, through drinks, through cosmetics like deodorants, if there's creams you use that are not organic, all that all those poisons we absorb into our physical body. So that's what I was tasting in my exhaled air, because I hadn't ventilated my bloodstream and the cells properly in a long time. So definitely with breathing exercises, there is an effect of directly on purely physical organs and blood, and through blood, nervous system, cells.
Sorry, Kim, which breathing exercises specifically are you referring to there?
Any.
The pranyak is in Chandali and...
Yes.
Is that enough, the OHY, the Chandali, to achieve that ventilation you refer to?
Well, I guess it depends. Yeah, the point with that toxicity in the air that I tasted, the fumes in the air that I tasted, after some number of repetitions, it stops tasting or smelling like fumes. So this is an indication that there is no longer that moment, there is no longer these poisons in my bloodstream. So whether you get to that point by doing 3 reps of Chandali, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you need 10, maybe you need 30 reps. Depends, always depends. But it's a big blessing to learn and to practice yoga, because when chemicals accumulate in the body, they cause disease. Karmas cause disease, but also purely physical substances also do that. When just a tip, when the way how I don't use any lotions for the skin, but I use sesame oil, organic sesame oil, on my face, on my head, on my skin. And also I haven't used like a chemical deodorant for 20 years because I use organic ones. Organic deodorants. You can get those from health shops. And I also try to, when organic food, organic ingredients are available, I buy organic. But then I might have a karma, I'm 41 now. I might have a karma that gives me cancer and I die in a year. So all the money I spent in a organic stuff might be completely wasted. But what the hell,
On that point then, is it, spiritually speaking, is it more that you're looking after the body purely as it's a vehicle for spiritual practice, in the sense that you need a physical body in order to practice, and that's sort of the most important thing about the physical, but actually the subtle body is more relevant in spiritual terms? Sort of.
Yes, but yes, certainly the practice happens mainly in the mind, in the energy body.
Yeah.
But when we shed these bodies, then we can, like I was talking yesterday, that Dharma practice is difficult because the mind is abstract, because it's made of non-physical, so it's difficult to perceive. But nevertheless, it can be done. And physical body and physical senses are very useful in that. Perceiving. But without physical body, like one day we all pass away and then, we find ourselves without physical body, then we can actually see our chakras and nadis without this physical one. And it's almost weightless, weighs like a gram. And that's an interesting thing, like, this is a little bit, I don't know, what's the word, like esoteric or etheric or discussion, but without the physical body, for example, if you had a lucid dream and you find yourself in a dream event of some form and you become aware of the dream, you realize that I'm dreaming, you feel weightless because you don't have physical body. Same thing after you die. You don't have physical body and you don't have weight, even though you have the same mind. But with the physical body, this is interesting, that when we are angry or depressed, something, anxious, it feels very heavy in the body, doesn't it? So that emotional state makes you feel very heavy. Kind of makes the mass of the body, this is not scientifically correct, but kind of makes the body seems like it's heavier than it is. Something like that.
My experience with the physical versus mind is that, so I've had periods where I've worked out, eaten correctly for my body and so on, and then periods where I don't do any of that stuff. And while the emptiness level, like level of insight, doesn't change with that. It feels much better when actually taking care of the body. So for general well-being, I would say that also it's just nicer to to be healthy. But it doesn't change the actual level of insight. And I'm sure that being unhealthy as a Buddha isn't, I mean, probably doesn't, well, yeah, I'm not going to go down.
When you get to that stage, you can show us. Just go to McDonald's and
I'll let
eat
everything just go.
buckets of fried chicken, smoking like 2 packs of cigars every day. What do you think I've been drinking all the time? No. Let's sit a little bit and then basic prayers. Let's chant basic prayers, just the absolute versions of refuge and bodhicitta, and finally dedication of merit. I am the Guru, I'm in the Pure Land, I am the Buddha, I am the Dharma, I am the Sangha. I am the Guru. I'm in the Pure Land. I am the Buddha. I am the Dharma. I am the Sangha. I am the Guru. I'm in the Pure Land. I am the Buddha. I am the Dharma. I am the Sangha. Absolute bodhicitta. Inhale. All beings are free. All beings are free. All beings are free. And dedication. Inhale. May all beings receive my accumulated merit. I dedicate the merit to the refuge and to all sentient beings. Joining hands.
Thanks, Kim.
How many people taking refuge tomorrow again? Liz, Olga, Oogie. 3. So have some kind of a altar-like thing ready for tomorrow. Like if you have a tanka of Guru Rinpoche, have it. If you have just a small picture, that is also sufficient. So have the picture somewhere on a nice display. Then get fresh flowers, a bouquet of fresh flowers. And if you have good incense, have that also ready for tomorrow. Flowers, incense, picture. And then also you need like a clean, nice, like a small bowl or a saucer, like a small plate, and scissors. Okay, but so we will have the refuge ceremony tomorrow, last session in the afternoon. So we will discuss how to use them, and I'll remind you to get the plate and scissors ready.
Kim, getting the flowers, now that's for the people who are going for refuge, the 3 people going for refuge, yes?
You can also get flowers, even though
Okay, yeah, but it is for the, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
In Russia, it's kind of impossible to have flowers now, you know,
Hmm?
because all shops in Russia, it's impossible to have flowers now because all shops are closed and there is no flowers because it's quite cold.
No problem. You find a flower shop, you break in and steal some. Are there no flowers, you know, outside? We have few flowers, spring flowers outside in the nature.
It's quite cold in Russia. I haven't seen them.
Okay.
I have seen some.
Okay, Maxim will take care of it. But it's not a problem if you don't have flowers or incense, you know, no problem. We can just make the ceremony a little bit ceremony-like with those things. If it was a proper ceremony, I should have some kind of a whisk, and I would be sprinkling holy water with a whisk, making some mudras while doing it. Circulating something 3 times or 9 times, walking around. But that's good also, these things. I have flowers all the time on my home altar. I just burned incense 1 or 2 hours ago. The best Japanese incense you can get. And there's a point in having all these things, you know. Sometimes I notice when I've been really busy and tired and all that, and when I wear my robe, it feels like it feels like having taken a shower, putting it on, like you feel clean again. Thank you for the 3rd day of this spring retreat. Thanks for practice again, and we'll continue tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So have a nice evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
My pleasure, my pleasure.